Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another stream. I hope y'all had a good Saturday so far. Mine's been pretty chill. Kind of on the busy-ish side, although I did have to let a couple of plans drop by the wayside. But I also feel like I wasn't as productive as I wanted to be, but I was still productive. It's one of those weird things. But we're here now, we're streaming. We are about to edit. And we have about an hour and 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and get to it. Alright. Sylvia, April 2nd. What do you want? Vanessa's tired voice echoed against the tiled walls of the bathroom. Sylvia looked up from where she was leaning her body over one of the sinks in an effort to not lose her breakfast. Alright, here we go. First mark for the edit. And in case you're new here, I'm not actively editing, I'm marking things for editing. And so I have a whole color code of things that I do. I also have a section where I remind myself who's what classes they're in, and things like that. So you might see me jump around if I need reminders or anything along those lines. But we're going to do the marks first, and then we're going to go back and we're going to physically handle those marks, and then the rest will be taken offline. So yeah, that's the plan. Where was I? Sylvia looked up from where she was leaning her body over one of the sinks in an effort not to lose her breakfast, and turned to face Vanessa, who had just stepped into the otherwise empty restroom. This was not the common restroom that most students used. The one that they had tried talking a few weeks earlier. No, this one was much less unused, and was located in the far corner of the school campus. Both girls were either going to be late to class, or miss it entirely after this conversation. Hey Milo, how's it going? Regardless of how their attendance records would look, Sylvia felt a strong sense of relief, I feel like is a better phrase. Sylvia felt a strong sense of relief come over her as she saw her former friend, in that doorway. I was hoping you'd come, she said. Vanessa shrugged and leaned her shoulder against the wall just inside of the doorway. It seemed like something to do, she said. I want to revamp that. It's, not only is it redundant, but it's also... I feel like I need to better explain that particular phrase. You're pronouncing it Milo? Milo. So, funny thing, I had said Milo in my head originally. I'm like, no, that's wrong. And so I went back to Milo, but it is Milo. Okay. But I apologize for mispronouncing it. Start. Alright. Sylvia narrowed her eyes. She was pretty sure Vanessa was trying to pretend to be aloof and not caring, but she wasn't confident about that. Her dad was right. She didn't pay much attention to her former friend much after the note was given, and so she didn't really know how Vanessa felt about the whole thing. After her talk with her father, she was determined to try to at least talk with Vanessa and learn her stance on everything. She didn't truly give her any chances after the note had been given. Vanessa walked off, and Sylvia just focused on what she could focus on to get her mind off of the situation. Well, that's not true. She didn't read the note until class. Now, she was trying to at least come to terms with her former friend's parents' decision. That's a mouthful. She wrote a note and slipped it into Vanessa's locker when she got to school in the morning, and had asked her to meet in this restroom between the first and second periods. No one would be calling their homes if this second period attendance was missed. And finally, now, Vanessa was standing here, her eyes anywhere but on Sylvia, waiting for a response from the blonde teenager. So, Sylvia began. Suddenly, her relief turned into awkwardness. How have you been? She asked nervously. As much as she preferred to ask Vanessa about what happened, she was frightened about how that conversation would go, and preferred to have small talk instead. You should put the defrosting has begun run in the background. Yeah, I'll Google it after this, because I am not familiar with that at all. Might be because I live in Florida and there's no such thing as snow here, but I will Google that later. Alright. So Sylvia began. Suddenly her relief turned into awkwardness. How have you been? She asked nervously. As much as she preferred to ask Vanessa about what happened, she was frightened about how that conversation would go, and preferred to have small talk instead. Vanessa raised an eyebrow at the question, and this time she looked up at Sylvia. She opened her mouth to say something, but closed it and chewed on her thoughts for a moment before returning a simple, "Fine. You?" Sylvia wanted to complain about how wrecked and broken she had been since receiving her former friend's note, but found herself unable to find those words. Technically, she didn't need to let Vanessa know about that. She'd probably feel guilty about all of it, knowing how Vanessa usually was. It was her parents' fault. They should feel guilty. But, Sylvia reasoned, since they were callous enough to end their friendship, they probably wouldn't feel any guilt for the depression Sylvia went through. "Fine," she answered in return. The two girls stood there in the restroom in awkward silence before Vanessa let out an exasperated sigh. "Look, your note said to meet you here so that we can talk about things. What things do you want to talk about?" Her voice wavered, but she still carried it through with a firm tone. Sylvia gulped again and shrugged. She gulped again. Hold on. I'll catch that on another edit through, I guess. Here, I'm just going to highlight that for consistency so I don't miss it next time. Sylvia gulped again and shrugged. She began, feeling lame. "I need to talk. I know what I want to talk about," she explained, "but I don't know how to get the words out, or how to talk about it. Right now I'm trying to figure out how non-furries would react to an anthropomorphic furry coming up to the house and ask where they were. And also how they feel being called humans. Probably weirded out. Just like if anybody, just imagine your neighbors answering the door and finding a standing fox out there asking where they were. Where am I? And why are you humans? Yeah. Just imagine someone who's, yeah, just see if what your grandma or what your neighbors would say. Pick somebody who falls under those guidelines and kind of put them in those shoes for the time being. Like an anthropomorphic wolf or fox, and they came up to your house and asked for directions. Yeah. Just see, imagine what your neighbors would say and, write accordingly. Alright, what was I? Vanessa gulped again and shrugged. She began, feeling lame. "I need to talk. I know what I want to talk about," she explained, but I don't know how to get the words out, or how to talk about it. Vanessa's expression softened, and she began to look like she was about to cry. Sylvia, she whispered. Look, I'm sorry, she started. I was depressed, Sylvia blurted out, finding that she wanted Vanessa to know what happened to her before she said any apologies. I was depressed and very sad. I don't know how you were feeling, but I wasn't fine, like I just said. I was depressed and awful, and I felt terrible. She let out a sigh. I hate that your parents are making this decision about our friendship. But my dad convinced me that we should respect your parents' wishes. So we will. Sylvia nodded, mostly to herself. Vanessa frowned. That's big of you, she replied. I am sorry that I made you depressed, though. I knew that we'd both be sad because of it, but I had no idea how bad it would make you. I am so sorry, she explained. Vanessa nodded. Oops, jumped ahead. I am so sorry. She finally got the apology out. Sylvia winced. She had a feeling Vanessa wasn't happy about the friendship breakup either, but because she was ignoring Vanessa during classes, she had no idea how badly her former friend was affected by it too. It's fine, Sylvia said. I'm trying to work through it. This is part of working through it, she explained. Vanessa nodded. I'm glad. I hope we can both work through this without any problems. Me too. Once again, awkward silence filled the air as the girls tried to find something to say. Vanessa? Sylvia spoke up, finally. She had a pit in her stomach, but she had to ask. She had to know. Why don't your parents think it's a good idea for us to be friends? She shook her... Really? Vanessa shook her brunette head. I don't know the details. I never bothered to ask, but I can understand why they think it's a good idea. I think it's because... Well, I'm not going to be around much longer after we graduate. She winced as she let those words come out of her mouth. Sylvia blinked. You're going to college, right? What other reason could there be for someone... I want to actually find a way to rephrase this. What other reason could there be for someone not being around much longer after graduation? Her family just moved to the area to be with family, so it didn't make any sense they'd be moving so shortly afterwards, unless it was something serious. But if Vanessa was going to college, then that would mean that she, and only she, was literally not going to be around much longer after school let out. Still, it didn't make sense. Just because Vanessa would be going to college and Sylvia wouldn't didn't mean they couldn't be friends after the fact. No, Sylvia. I'm dying. Bum bum bum! Alright. Next chapter. Haven't figured out what type of cancer it is, but you know. Oh, ooh. Apparently had the wrong thing highlighted. There we go. Does the story have a title? It's still untitled. It probably won't get a title until like after 2 or 3 edits through, because I still have to add some sections to it too, or decide if I'm going to take out the Vanessa sections or what I'm going to do with all that. That's going to take a little bit of time. Sylvia, April 2nd. Restrooms. Fuck cancer. The 2 girls sat on the bench outside the restroom where they had met. Neither of them spoke, both lost in thought. After Vanessa came clean about why she understood her parents' concern with their friendship, the 2 of them left the I'm actually going to... No, I think there's a better point where I can highlight that. The two of them left the restroom to sit on the benches and get some fresh air as they talked. They knew that if a teacher were to walk by, they would both likely be in trouble. Sometimes getting in trouble is worth it. Also, you may have not heard it just now, but I did say that I still have to figure that one out. I'm thinking something like stomach or intestinal, but I have to do the research, and so that'll be a later step. I was doing so well, Vanessa said quietly, looking at her hands. And then, a couple months ago, around the time that we started to become friends, we're going to mark that for consistency because of the rework. And then a couple months ago, around the time we started to become friends, the results came back. I was in remission, but then it came back. They call it a recurrence. Let out a slow exhale. My family was so relieved when we thought it was gone. She looked to her side at Sylvia. I only started here last year, but I've technically been a student in the district for 2 years. I just spent so much of my time at the hospital trying to get rid of the cancer. They let me do my studies using an online virtual school. Then, last May, they said it was in remission, and so I was allowed to actually come to school this year. She smiled. I'm glad I got the chance to meet you. I wasn't lying when I said what I said all those months ago. About what? Sylvia asked. She was having a tough time keeping her mind focused on what Vanessa was telling her. After she let out the bombshell that she was dying, and with the additional information that it was cancer, Sylvia was trying to figure out if there were any signs that she had missed along the way. Apparently there weren't, but she still felt like she should have known. Vanessa smiled. About you being unique. I liked it. Not many people dance to the beat of their own drum, or I guess paint to the stroke of their own brush. She grinned as she changed the phrase to match her friend better. I'm gonna highlight that for a rework. Oh, Sylvia blushed and looked down. I never thought you were lying. I just thought it was weird. Vanessa laughed. I guess people don't go around calling each other interesting enough, huh? That we do not, Sylvia agreed. The girls both shared a soft chuckle and then fell into a comfortable silence. How much time? Sylvia asked. Vanessa shrugged. They're not sure. It's more aggressive, and it was already stage 3 when they removed it the first time. She closed her eyes and exhaled through her nose. So, it's back, and they said it either looks like it's just a very aggressive stage 3, or it's early stage 4. That was about 2 months ago. I'm gonna say about. That was about 2 months ago, right? How are they not sure? What's the difference? Vanessa smiled, her eyes still closed, and just shrugged. I don't know why they can't determine which stage it is. 4 is deadlier than 3, though. Her eyes opened and seemed to fixate on something far away in the distance that Sylvia couldn't see. The doctors said that either way, things don't look good. The difference in stages just means that if it's stage 3, I might be able to live longer. Alright, heads up for my Twitch viewers, there is an ad incoming in about 4 or 5 minutes. Can't they remove it again? Vanessa shrugged. Maybe. She winced, her eyes still fixed on some unknown object in the distance. Tears began to well in her eyes. But the treatment was almost unbearable that first time. If they had to do it again, it would be even worse this time because of how bad the recurrence is. She hiccuped and squeezed her eyes shut. If it's a stage 3... Actually, no, that's a good suggestion. If it's stage 3, they said they could probably remove it again with more aggressive treatment. But if it's a 4, there's no guarantee of survivability even if they were to do the most aggressive treatment. Sylvia reached down and put a hand on her friend's shoulder and gave it a gentle squeeze. Hey, I'm right here, she said comfortingly. Thanks, Vanessa said, turning a teary gaze toward her blonde classmate and smiled thankfully. I mean it. Thank you for your friendship. Sylvia felt herself give a little smile in return. Then she frowned and asked, Review that. So, I don't get it, Vanessa. Don't get what? If you're going to... She trailed, not wanting to finish that particular thought. Why wouldn't you want to have friends to be there around you? I've got my family, she said, almost as a practiced excuse. Sylvia sighed. Family's good and all, but it's not the same as having a friend. If you've got a friend within your family, that's great. But do you? If I ever have a character that's dying, they will make a YouTube video titled, If you see this, I'm dead, to get an eerie and creepy feeling of hearing the voice of someone who isn't alive anymore. I mean, that's the way to do it, I guess. Have it published after the date of their death. Alright, where was I? Sylvia sighed. Family's good and all, but it's not the same as having a friend. If you've got a friend within your family, that's great. But do you? Vanessa just stared at Sylvia for a moment before letting her shoulders slump and shook her head. No, I love everyone in my family, but I don't have anyone like you that I can talk to openly. That word somehow struck a nerve with Sylvia, and she leaned back and pulled her shoulders down too. Openly? Yeah. Then why didn't you tell me? Vanessa's eyes went wide, like a deer in the headlights. I don't know, she answered sheepishly. I guess I figured I would tell you if it came up. She shrugged. But it never really did, until now. I guess I was just hoping I would never have to tell you. Sylvia shook her head. Why would you hope that you would never have to tell me? It sounds like you either expected to die suddenly, or that we wouldn't be friends long enough for me to find out. I'll still find out. This city's not a big one, she pointed out. I should change that to town. Vanessa's teary eyes began to allow the tears to spill. I'm sorry, she said, over and over again. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to deal with it. I'm currently feeling fine, for the most part. I hoped that it would just go away, Sylvia asked, interrupting her as she recalled what her father had said about hardships the night before. Something like that, Vanessa admitted. Sylvia sighed. Well, what's done is done, she said. There was another pause of silence before she asked, Do you still want to be friends? Vanessa was now silent as she contemplated the question. I want to be friends, she said, her voice meek. But I don't want my parents to know. They'll be heartbroken. Why? Sylvia asked. They never wanted my illness to be a burden for anyone but them, she explained, leaning back and looking up at the sky. Well, if we don't treat it like a burden, it won't be, Sylvia pointed out. Vanessa chuckled at the concept. Right, but what about... She changed her train of thought. What if I take a turn for the worse? Sylvia shrugged. What if I get hit by a car today? Life sucks sometimes. You just gotta keep at it. I mean, the other option is honestly kind of boring. That prompted a chuckle from Vanessa, which caused Sylvia to grin wide. See? She asked. Vanessa nodded. I'll see if I can't talk to my parents tonight, she said as the bell to end the second period rang. The two girls stood and stared at each other. Finally, Vanessa lunged forward and wrapped her arms around Sylvia. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" the surprised Sylvia asked, but still returned the hug. "Not giving up on me?" Vanessa answered before taking a step back. She smiled, more bashfully than any other time. More bashfully than any other time Sylvia had seen the otherwise exuberant teenager smile. "I'm sorry I put us through this." Sylvia shrugged. "You said you were a coward, so I get it." The video is published soon after the character's death, and the character's best friend partner watches it and feels creeped out. I mean, yeah, I can see that. Where was I? "For what?" a surprised Sylvia asked, but still returned the hug. "Not giving up on me," Vanessa answered before taking a step back. She smiled, more bashfully than any other time Sylvia had seen the otherwise exuberant teenager smile. "I'm sorry I put us through this." Yeah, that's okay. Sylvia shrugged. "You said you were a coward, so I get it." Vanessa blinked. "What?" "In your letter, you were afraid of your parents, and you were afraid of what might happen to me if..." This time Sylvia trailed off. "Anyway, you said you were a coward, so with all of that in mind, I get it. I'm not upset with you. If my parents wanted me to do something, I would..." She paused and shook her head. "Well, actually, I'd probably fight them on the details I didn't like, but I'd probably end up listening to them in the end." Vanessa chuckled. "Well, thank you for your understanding then, too," she added. The two walked, side by side, down the hall to the main corridor so they could continue the rest of the school day as planned. Alright, about an hour left. I stretched. That stretch felt good. Sylvia, April 2nd, lunch. I don't know if it's April 2nd still or not, but I'm just gonna say it is. It's one of the benefits of having, or using, really? It happened again? Weird. But this is one of the reasons why I like using the dates here, at least for the chapter titles in the meantime, or in the interim, so I just get that little timeline. I don't normally do it. This is the first time I actually have ever done it. But I also haven't rearranged my stories before, so. Alright, Sylvia, April 2nd, lunch. "Pineapple on pizza?" Vanessa asked, shocked as she carried her plate to the booth where Sylvia was already sitting. Yeah, it's not the 2nd anymore. Alright, we're just gonna question mark, question mark, question mark. "Pineapple on pizza?" Vanessa asked, shocked as she carried her plate to the booth where Sylvia was already sitting with a large slice of Hawaiian pizza. "Yeah, why not?" Sylvia answered. She had her cup of fountain tea in her hand, sipping at it while she waited for her friend to come around with her order. Vanessa sat down, putting her plate of pepperoni pizza on the table in front of her. "So, we've got Hawaiian pizza and pepperoni pizza. I feel like Hawaiian needs to be highlighted because it's for Hawaii, but we'll find out." Vanessa sat down, putting her plate of pepperoni pizza on the table in front of her, and setting her drink of some light-colored soda off to the side. "I don't think I've ever seen pineapple on pizza," she explained. "It's called Hawaiian," Sylvia explained. "My mom introduced it to me last year." It had been a few days, so we're just going to be literal and say that it's now the 5th. It had been a few days since the girls had their hallway discussion and rekindled their friendship. According to Vanessa, her mother was against the idea, but her father was able to talk her into accepting it. To celebrate, the girls decided to hang out together outside of school for once. After some time deliberating via text message, the two settled on a pizza lunch over the weekend. It still seems weird. I actually want to make that the 6th. It still seems weird, Vanessa commented, picking up her slice in both hands, folding it almost in half, and taking a bite out of the end. Sylvia shrugged. I like weird, I guess, she commented before doing the same to her large slice of pizza. Vanessa chuckled but said nothing as she chewed her slice. She looked around and sighed heavily. What is it? Sylvia asked as she quickly chewed and swallowed her bite. The bite wasn't fully chewed though, but she wanted to ask... the bite wasn't fully chewed through, but she wanted to ask what was causing her friend to sigh like that. Vanessa looked back at Vanessa and smiled. Nothing, really. Nothing? Sylvia raised an eyebrow to her friend. Vanessa looked sheepish for a moment, and then looked around again. I don't get to go out like this a lot, she commented. Why? Too dangerous. Why? Sylvia asked again. Vanessa chuckled and shook her head. When you're sick, you tend to pick up on illnesses faster than others, she explained. Sylvia tilted her head. Then why the heck did your parents allow you to go to a public school? Vanessa laughed heartily at that question. I was much better, remember? You thought we beat it. Oh, yeah. Sylvia recalled the circumstance that her friend had shared with her when she came clean about everything. Technically, I should not be out here right now, or even still be in public school, Vanessa continued, looking down and starting to pick at one of the pepperoni rounds from the cheese of the pizza. But I told my mom that this was short... Okay, again, we're gonna have to rework that. But I told my mom this was shortly before we became friends, so keep in mind that this is independent of what recently happened. Sylvia nodded and urged her friend to continue. But I told my mom that if I was not going to last much longer anyway, then I wanted to go out like any other teenager my age would, she smiled. Including going to school and risking catching a cold or something. Sylvia tilted her head. She didn't recall her friend ever getting sick. There were a couple of days, either late last semester or earlier in this semester, that she noticed Vanessa wasn't in class, but she was always back the next day and never seemed to have a cold or anything. Are you superhuman? She asked. Vanessa blinked at her and laughed. I think, given the circumstances, I'm exactly the opposite. Sylvia shook her head. But you've got... She trailed off, not wanting to announce her friend's condition in front of the whole world that consisted of the pizza parlor. You've got that issue, she tried again, her voice more subdued this time. But I've never actually seen you be sick. But I've never seen you actually be sick, not even a cold or anything. We're gonna highlight that for a rework. Everything's fine, doesn't need to add or remove, just rephrase. Vanessa shrugged. For my issue, she used the same word as Sylvia, it's more internal, so things hurt on the inside. I've gotten really good at not showing when I'm in pain. For the other stuff, I think my parents kept me away from germs and things like that for so long that I did pretty well growing up. And then, Sylvia pressed, maybe I'm just lucky? Vanessa answered with a shrug. Maybe, Sylvia conceded, just before she picked up her slice of pizza again. Before she took another bite, she looked up and said, maybe I should do some fun runs. Vanessa, who was already mid-chew, finished her bite, swallowed, took a long sip of her clear, fizzy beverage. Alright, so we need to be specific about this one. I think that's the blue color. And then asked, do some what now? Some fun runs, Sylvia answered with a grin. But I don't run, Vanessa pointed out. But these will be fun, Sylvia countered. Vanessa tilted her head to regard her friend across the table skeptically. How? Sylvia shrugged. I don't know. I just know that that at the end everyone is very colorful. Have you ever done a fun run? Me? No. I'm not athletic. I wouldn't last 5 steps, Sylvia admitted before finally taking another bite from her slice of pizza. Vanessa gave her a flat look. And you want me to do it? Mouth was still full of food. Sylvia wasn't about to verbally give her any sort of answer, but instead she nodded. Sylvia swallowed her mouth full of sorry, I jumped ahead again. Vanessa shook her head. I'm not athletic either. There's no way I'd be able to do something like that. Sylvia swallowed her mouthful of pizza and grinned. And you want me to dance all night at prom? That's different, Vanessa pouted. You don't have to dance all night. They have chairs if I get tired easily. Sylvia nodded slowly. Uh-huh. They do, Vanessa defended herself. I know, Sylvia answered. I think it's just a lot of work to get tired easily, she shrugged. Well, you don't like to have a good time, that's all, Vanessa quipped back, taking another bite from her pepperoni pizza. Sure, that's it, Sylvia laughed, as her brunette grinned at her. Brunette is the new word for friend, apparently. The two continued to eat in silence for a bit longer before Sylvia tilted her head curiously and looked at Vanessa. Do you have a date for prom? Vanessa raised her eyebrow at the question. Why? Do you want to be my date? Sylvia shook her head. No. My stance still hasn't changed. You will not find me at prom under any circumstances. Then why ask? Just curious. Vanessa smiled and looked down at her plate. She set the pepperoni pizza on top of it and started fiddling with a loose piece of the crust. So, I don't really have a date, but I do. Sort of. Sort of? Sylvia leaned forward. Spill it. Vanessa laughed and blushed. I had a feeling you'd be bugging me about this sooner or later. Bugging you about what? I just asked if you had a date. You're the one being coy. Vanessa chuckled. Maybe I am. Like, do I want to keep this in here? I'm going to highlight you. Who is it? Sylvia asked immediately. Vanessa shook her head. I don't really have a date. Sort of, Sylvia said, quoting her friend's words. You do have a date, but it's only sort of. Vanessa rolled her eyes but smiled, leaning back in her seat. Yes, it's sort of a date. Because of your parents? She nodded. Okay, I get that. But you still haven't told me who. Vanessa swayed side to side in her seat, her smile growing the more that Sylvia asked. Still, she said nothing. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Maybe a little bit, Vanessa finally answered. Fine, I'll stop asking. Then you'll just have to tell me yourself when the fact that you're hiding this mystery boy from me becomes too unbearable, Sylvia declared, picking up her Hawaiian pizza again and taking another munch from the slice. I like the word munch, I just don't know if that's how it needs to be worked into the sentence. Vanessa laughed. Do you think that'll actually happen? Of course! I'm your best friend. You can't keep things from me, Sylvia declared, puffing out her chest. I don't know, Vanessa commented. I'm pretty good at keeping things to myself. It was Sylvia's turn to give her friend a flat look. Yes, you are, she admitted. But I have something you don't. What's that? Sylvia grinned. I've got other friends who are going to prom. So? And they'll tell me who you're going out, and they'll tell me who you're sort of going with, she said threateningly. Vanessa's grin dropped, and then she laughed. Of course. So? Sylvia asked, or said. So? Vanessa asked. Who is it? Vanessa laughed again. You'll never guess. You're making me guess now? Sylvia asked, shaking her head. Yep. Vanessa nodded. I've got to drag this out as long as I can, she explained. Why is that? Sylvia asked. Vanessa grinned. To keep you in suspense longer. Sylvia stuck out her tongue toward Vanessa, who sat back in the booth again and laughed. You're really not going to tell me, are you? Sylvia accused. No, why would I? Where's the fun in that? Vanessa asked, her grin getting bigger. I'm back. Also, you said I'm going to Google it later about the meme. Did you mean during... After the stream itself. There's no stream break tonight. I'm ending in 45 minutes. Because it's no longer the novel challenge month, I'm back to just doing the shorter streams. And welcome back. Alright, where was I? No, why would I? Where's the fun in that? Vanessa asked, her grin getting bigger. I don't know, Sylvia tried answering. You haven't made any guesses yet, Vanessa pointed out before grabbing a pepperoni round from her slice of pepperoni pizza and popping it into her mouth. A little bit of redundancy there. Sylvia sighed. Fine. Is it Eddie Oliver? She asked, using a boy who was in the economics class they had together. Him? No. Vanessa shook her head. Try again. Sylvia sighed. Fine. I think I'm going to highlight that for redundancy too. Fine. Is it Oscar Valdez? She guessed. She knew of him from growing up in the school system together, but she didn't know anything about him. They hadn't had any classes together since freshman year of high school. I'm gonna double check that capitalizationing. Apparently Vanessa didn't have any classes with Oscar Valdez either. Given how she looked confused at the name, we're going to highlight that. It was both names for word fluff. We don't need that. Never heard of him, she replied with a shake of the head. A grin crossed her face. One more guess, she teased. And then you'll tell me? And then you'll just have to wait for your informants to bring the information to you, Vanessa said, her voice dropping low like someone from a black and white film noir movie. Sylvia shook her head. Not fair. You didn't say anything about a guess limit. Oh, Sylvia. Vanessa shook her head in mock disappointment. Don't you know? There's always a limit. Password tries, free refills, even prom date guesses. The limit is usually 3. Sylvia couldn't help but smirk at her friend's response to this. Fine. One last one, huh? Do I get any new guesses tomorrow? Vanessa shook her head. Nope, this will be the last one. Ever. She said, emphasizing the word ever. Fine, I guess I've got to make this a good one. Sylvia hunched over, grabbing up her slice of pizza and gnawing on it lightly as she tried to figure out which boy in their class. Do we want to use that word or something else? Would be most likely to go to prom with her friend. He had to be good looking, of course. Vanessa liked smart people, but she also liked unique people like Sylvia. Were there any boys who were smart but unique? Sylvia couldn't think of any offhand, so she came out with the first name she could think of from the boys who she considered unique. Steve Lyons? Vanessa blinked. Steve Lyons? The little kid who's always at the library? She asked, surprised. Yeah, Sylvia replied. Yeah, Sylvia replied. Steve Lyons was... Sylvia replied. Stephen Lyons was in their same class, but was much shorter and scrawnier than any of the other kids in the school. Even incoming freshmen would... Give me 1 second. Even incoming freshmen would give me 1 second. Hey girl, ready to get out of the office? Here you go. The kitty cat woke up from her nap and she wanted out, so I had to let her out. Alright, stretchy stretch. Where was I? Stephen Lyons was in their same class, but he was much shorter and scrawnier than any of the other kids in the school. Even incoming freshmen would often make him look younger than he actually was. It was well known that he preferred books over people, mostly because people didn't seem to accept that he was as old as he was. Sylvia was once friends with him, mostly because of the fact that they were both considered weirdos in their own right. Over time, though, she stopped hanging out with him, and they grew apart. Vanessa wrinkled her nose at the thought. No. Okay, you get 1 extra one for that guess. What's wrong with Steven? Sylvia asked, defending him. Not my type. You don't like guys who like books? No, that's not it, Vanessa defended herself. He's just very quiet. I need someone who I can talk to easily. Fine. Do I still get that extra guess? Sylvia asked. I mean, I said you get it, right? Vanessa counter-asked. Just making sure you weren't going to take it away from me, Sylvia said, leaning back into her seat as she thought of who else she could guess. There were a lot of boys in their class, but she had named some of the more outgoing ones that seemed to match Vanessa's personality. Of course, 3 boys out of a class of maybe 100, maybe more, was just a drop in the bucket. She had a lot of people she could name as a guess, but if this was going to be her last one, at least the last one Vanessa would admit to, then she wanted it to be right. Grady Thompson, she asked slowly. She wasn't too familiar with that boy. From what Sylvia knew, he was more into sports and hanging out with his bros than he was interested in school and conversations with other people. Still, Vanessa was a pretty girl, so Grady might have been interested in her enough to ask her to prom. Vanessa smiled at the name, but shook her head. He's cute, I'll give him that. But no, not him, she said, apologies in her voice. Then who? Sylvia asked, almost throwing her arms in the air. If it wasn't for the Hawaiian pizza in her hands, she may have done just that. You'll have to wait and see. Vanessa winked and then took the last bite of her pepperoni pizza. Dun dun dun. Alright. So it's a week and a day later, so... April 1st is... I didn't specify this as a school day, right? Yeah. So... that works. Sylvia... April... Math is hard, hold on. 13, 14. April 14th. A week and a day later, Sylvia looked at her clock. It read 8:54. She rolled back over and pulled a pillow over her head. It was way too early to be getting up on a Sunday morning. If she had her preference, she would be able to sleep in, uninterrupted until at least 10 or later. However, today, for some reason, her brain decided that it wanted to regain consciousness. Excuse me. Sorry about that. However, today, for some reason, her brain decided that it wanted to regain consciousness much earlier than she would have preferred on a weekend day. We're going to revamp that. She had no idea why her brain would want to betray her like that, but nonetheless, it did. She spent several minutes under the pillow, making sure there's just enough clearance from the edge of the pillow to have an opening near her mouth, so it didn't feel like she was breathing pillow air. No good. She was not about to fall back to sleep. With a grumble, she shoved the pillow off of her face and toward the foot of her bed. Fine. I'm awake, she grumbled to no one in particular. She rolled over again and looked once more at the clock. It read 8:56. It had only been 2 minutes under the pillow before she determined she was too awake to try to sleep again. She let out a disconcerted sigh and began to push herself out of the twin bed that she slept in. Since the weather was getting warmer, she had changed her sheets to some cotton gray material that kept her cooler as the morning and nights got warm. The comforter that she normally kept on her bed during the holidays was nowhere to be found, and instead there was a light throw blanket with a flower design that acted as her bed blanket. Alright. This is mostly just word fluff, or see if we need that later. The bed itself was a twin bed, which is redundant because I just said that in the previous paragraph. The bed itself was a twin bed, but although it was on a basic bed frame, there was not a footboard nor a headboard to speak of. The bed was pressed up against the corner of the right side and head area, up against the corner with the right side and head area up against the wall. Sylvia stood up from her bed and stretched her arms overhead. I'll say over her head, letting out a large yawn that shook her body even as she stretched. Shaking her head, she shuffled to her dresser that was opposite her bed against the far wall. As usual, it was cluttered with various items from jewelry that Sylvia only sometimes wore to hair ties that she stopped using when she cut her hair down to her chin. Okay, so I have talked about this already, so we're just gonna highlight you. Art supplies, books, knickknacks from school, and even a hamster ball that managed to find its way there after one of her classmates asked her to hold onto it for him for a while. Sylvia looked at all of the items strewn across the wooden dresser and then found what she was looking for. She picked up her white hairbrush and pulled it through her short strands, taking time to eliminate the few knots that formed overnight. Next, she trudged over to her paint desk and stood over it, looking down at a piece of art she had been working on recently. She smiled at the image that she was looking down at, and then blinked. Oh yeah, she murmured to herself. That was last night. Alright, do I want to be... Yeah, I kind of want to add some details to that. She went back to her dresser and quickly got dressed from her PJs into a pair of loungewear pants, a bra, and a t-shirt. Sylvia then left her room and crossed the living room and made her way into the kitchen where her phone was charging. That feels like a word salad. She took it off the charging cable and unlocked it. There were a few messages from her friends, but she didn't see any from the friend who she wanted to hear about. I'm gonna actually try to incorporate more friends in the edits too. Sylvia. her mother said with a disappointed tone. Did you charge your phone in the kitchen overnight again? Her mother had been sitting on the couch, scrolling through her own phone as Sylvia had walked by to grab her device. Yeah? The teenager answered, looking up. There's nothing wrong with it, she said immediately, defensively. Her mother frowned a bit. If you just cleaned your room, I wouldn't be able to find anything, she quickly replied to her mother's words. Sylvia's mother sighed heavily and shook her head. So be it. Sylvia blinked. She expected her mother to say something else to try to convince her to charge her phone in her room rather than across the house in the kitchen. This was unexpected behavior, and she didn't know how to handle it. You're not going to yell at me? Sylvia's mother looked up and blinked at her. The idea of putting your phone in your room when you charge it is so that it's on hand when you need it, especially in an emergency. As a teenager, I don't expect you to have any emergencies that require your phone to always be on hand. As you get older, you'll realize that you'll need it close by as an adult. For now, though, you can get away with it being in the kitchen. It's just extra effort on your behalf. I'll just change that to part. It's just extra effort on your part, she explained. She frowned and took a sip from her coffee. Oh no, this is actually intentional. Okay. It's just extra effort on your behalf, she explained. She frowned and took a sip from her coffee. I don't mean on your behalf, she said. I mean, it's just extra effort for you, she corrected herself. We'll see if I want to keep that there. That was me channeling, when I wrote that part, it was me channeling the fact that sometimes I say the wrong things. And so I added that to the story a little bit. I understand, Mom, Sylvia answered. She wasn't sure how to reply to her mother's miniature lecture. She was still shocked that her mother didn't try to push the issue originally. But her mother's comments made a lot of sense. We're gonna revise that too. What if something happened overnight and someone tried to reach her? She would not have known until first thing in the morning. Until the first thing this morning. A sudden concern came over Sylvia. Although she had just glanced at her notifications, she did not actually read any of them. If something happened to Vanessa overnight, maybe they were going to let her know so she could take action. The phone unlocked and Sylvia swiped through her recent messages, one at a time. There were a few that mentioned the boy Vanessa had ended up going to prom with, a few that wondered where Sylvia was, but none that mentioned any issues Vanessa might have run into. A wave of relief flooded Sylvia, and she smiled. Hopefully Vanessa had a good prom with the boy that she was only sort of going with. She opened Vanessa's contact information and started to write a message. Hey, how did it go? I'm gonna keep that but revamp it. Before she finished writing the simple 5-worded question, Sylvia paused. Prom was supposed to run practically all night until midnight. Vanessa was probably sleeping in, and probably would be asleep for several more hours if Sylvia was using herself as any sort of indicator. She backspaced all of the words until the message box was blank, and then she closed the messaging app. She'll just let Vanessa rest for the day, and then tomorrow during school she'll get the details. About how her night went. Smiling to herself, she turned off the phone and held it in her hands as she went to join her mother on the couch. What's got you so happy? Her mother asked. Sylvia shrugged. Not sure, she said. I think I'm just happy. Her mother looked at her with an appraising expression before nodding and smiling herself. Well, whatever has you happy, I'm glad. You deserve happiness. Everyone does. I think, Sylvia said, looking down at her phone which held no new notifications. Everyone I know is happy right now. Kind of a sappy ending for that chapter, but it's fine. Alright. Next chapter. Okay, that was weird. Sylvia, April 14th. Evening. Yeah, I don't allow, actually, hold on. But yeah, I don't really allow links on YouTube or Twitch, so I'll just have to look at it later. Sylvia, April 14th, evening. A buzz sounded from the window frame where Sylvia's phone was resting. It was much later that Sunday, with the sun having already fallen below the horizon and stars beginning to shine in the evening sky. Sylvia, in the middle of scrutinizing where she should make the next stroke, almost didn't hear the buzz. However, it came a second time, and the vibrations managed to knock the small device off of the windowsill and onto the paint desk that Sylvia was currently using, making a loud thunk noise once it landed. Sylvia jumped at the startling noise and then nearly cursed out loud as she realized what happened. "I hope it didn't hit any paint," she muttered as she put the brush down, picked up a relatively clean cloth, and gingerly picked up her phone with the cleanest parts of the cloth. She looked it over and breathed a sigh of relief when she realized that it had escaped the messier parts of her paint desk. Taking care to put it back on the windowsill, Sylvia went to go wash her hands and returned in time for a third buzz to sound from the tiny device. Yeah, to wash her hands is fine. I'm coming, she muttered. She had already replied to all of her friends today, and the conversation seemed to be done and over with. What else did someone want to talk about? What else did someone want to say? I'm gonna mark that. She unlocked her phone and took a look at the notifications. It was indeed a series of messages from one person. Vanessa. I don't like the indeed there. Hey, are you there? Sylvia? Are you mad at me? The first two came in about a minute apart, but the third one came about 5 minutes later. Sylvia winced. She wasn't mad at Vanessa. She was trying to let her rest before trying to get the details on the day of prom. Details. Revamp that. Vanessa didn't know that, though. Sylvia never said as much, so of course Vanessa would be wondering why there was such silence happening between them. Oh. Sylvia used an automatic response offered by her phone. One sec. She then set down her phone and quickly ran to the restroom to wash the paint. Wait. She literally just did that. After that, she returned to her room, shut the door, grabbed the phone, and plopped on her bed and sent another response. Sorry, was painting. Vanessa replied, Oh, okay, good. And then a moment later, was afraid you somehow were mad at me. Why? I didn't hear from you at all today. I'm gonna highlight this and have it be reviewed. Sylvia nodded. It was as she thought. She replied, Sorry, I thought you might be tired from last night, so I'd get the details tomorrow. The next message from Vanessa surprised Sylvia. Haha! There were 3 dots to indicate that she was still typing, however. and so Sylvia decided to see what else was coming before replying. I was very tired, and then that was followed by, but I was more surprised that you didn't reach out. Sorry, Sylvia texted for the third time. Lesson learned. She sent the lines and then sent a third one. How was it? It was great, came Sylvia's immediate reply, followed by, you should have been there. Why? So much fun. Lots of dancing. I know you don't like that, but lots of people talking and joking too. There's a photo booth too. Sylvia smiled a little bit. She probably would have enjoyed the groups of people gossiping. Gossiping is now a word. I don't know what it means, but it is now a word. I like it. Sylvia smiled a little bit. She probably would have enjoyed the groups of people gossiping. The photo booth was a bit of an odd thing to like, though. What kind of photo booth? She responded inquisitively. Sec, came Vanessa's response. Hey, Nicholas, how's it going? Yeah, the struggle is real. We'll put it that way. And then trying to read it out loud. Ugh. When you're already having trouble tripping over the words as it is. No bueno. But it's good. Sylvia leaned her back against the wall as she waited. A few moments later, a picture popped up in in their messages. Save the messages. It was a photo booth similar to one she'd seen before at a mall when their family went to one of the larger cities in the state. Let's be specific. It was literally a giant box with a curtain on one side. Sylvia knew that on the inside, people would go in and pose for a series of pictures. She wasn't sure how many, probably 3 or 4 if the images on the side of the box were any indicator. She had never gone into a contraption like that herself. There were props we could take in, came Vanessa's next message. I chose a princess crown and a sign that said, I'm with crazy. I think it would shrivel up like a raisin if someone asked me to do that. I mean, it's definitely, not easy, I'll admit, but reading out loud is a good way to tell where the typos are and, you know, where things just don't make sense. As long as you can remember that, you know, decipher between tripped words and actual words on text. And see, there I go again, tripping over my own words. So, discernment is key. Alright, where was I? There were props we could take in, came Vanessa's next message. I chose a princess crown and a sign that said, I'm with crazy. Excuse me. Right. Sylvia giggled at the image. Do you have any pics of your dress? You never showed me. I didn't, came the reply. Sylvia could almost hear Vanessa's voice asking the same thing with audible surprise. Nope. Instead of another message, Vanessa sent a picture. It was of her in a dark blue, shoulderless dress that hugged her body and flared out. She was posing in front of a large tree that she had in her front yard. Pretty. The color suits you, Sylvia replied. Thanks, Vanessa replied in turn. Alright. Sylvia then sent the message she was sure Vanessa was waiting for. So, why did you end up going with Thomas Edmonds? Alright, Alright, so let me grab that name and jump up to the characters list. I'll say he's... Alright. In Sylvia's mind's eye, she could see... Yeah, let me actually highlight that for text research. In Sylvia's mind's eye, she could picture Vanessa grinning at the question. After the guessing session at the end of the pizza parlor last week, the brunette had been adamant that she was not going to give up who she was sort of going to the prom with. It wasn't for any lack of trying on Sylvia's part either. She did her best to pry that information from her friend, but Vanessa was very good at keeping things to herself. He asked me, came her simple response. Is that it? Sylvia was a bit surprised. She expected there to be more reason. Thomas was just a regular kid. Not too smart, not too athletic, not too handsome. Just another guy in class that Sylvia knew of, but didn't know well. I hate the word class, but class and grade level, it's all synonymous. I hate it. Love it, but hate it. Love-hate relationship. Okay, anyway. Is that it? Sylvia was a bit surprised. She expected there to be more reason. Thomas was just a regular kid. Not too smart, not too athletic, not too handsome. Just another guy in class that Sylvia knew of, but didn't know well. Yeah, sort of. What do you mean, sort of? He asked me, and I told him that I wasn't looking for a date for prom, but he wanted someone to dance with during the slow song. I'm actually going to revamp that one. And he accepted that answer? Yeah. Sylvia blinked. As much as she wouldn't admit it, she knew that a lot of the kids at their school used the dance nights as an excuse to get together both before and after the dance and partake and do reactionary... Nope. Why did I write reactionary? Recreational activities that most kids wouldn't do on a regular school night. Prom night was one that was especially notorious for those activities, to the point where the faculty had to put up special flyers around the school to urge caution among the students. So naturally, her next question was, did you guys do anything after? There was a very long delay before she saw Vanessa typing a response. Not quite, which was followed by a winky face. Sylvia, with her back against the wall, and her body firmly sitting nowhere near any of the edges, somehow managed to nearly fall off her bed. What do you mean? She responded quickly, not caring to fix any typos. Creating typos for the sake of not fixing typos. Gotta love it. Actually, no, I'm gonna... Still needs to be legible. So I'm just gonna mark that for a revamp. That probably would be better left to talking in person, was the next response, with 2 emojis this time, a blush and another winky face. Sylvia felt herself blushing. Oh my. About 10 minutes left. Alright, that's enough for another section, I think. I can be a little bit on the late side today, too. Sylvia, April 15th. So, give me all the details, Sylvia blurted out as soon as she stepped out of her father's car and saw Vanessa waiting by the entrance to the school. We established the meeting points another place, but... What details? Vanessa asked, a large grin belying her feigned ignorance. I love the phrase, and just not sure if we want to use it. You know what details, Sylvia countered, sticking out her tongue. Vanessa laughed and then shook her head. We're in the middle of public right now, she said, her voice lowering into a whisper. I can't say anything like that. Sylvia's face took on a shocked expression. You didn't. No, Vanessa immediately answered, shaking her head. Not like that, anyway. Then how? What? Sylvia began to feel confused. She was pretty sure they were talking about Vanessa and Thomas hooking up, but maybe that wasn't the case. With a sigh, Vanessa glanced around to take in the people who were at the front of the school with them, and stepped closer to Sylvia. As she did, she motioned for Sylvia to come closer to her. Taking the cue, Sylvia leaned in so that Vanessa could whisper into her ear. We made out for a while. Sylvia blinked and then laughed. That was not at all anything like she was expecting. What? Vanessa asked, stepping back. That is not at all what I was expecting. Repeating stuff. Good for word bloat, word count. Not good for, editing. Maybe it's good for editing. Anyway, Sylvia explained, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. What were you expecting? Well, Sylvia started and then shrugged. I don't know. Just more things than that, I guess. I'm going to actually highlight this because I kind of want to add to it. And then we get Vanessa's reaction. Vanessa blinked and took a moment to digest what Sylvia was mentioning. Suddenly, her face got red. Oh, no. She shook her head. I think maybe he wanted to, but I wasn't going to. He didn't ask. I would have said no anyway. She kept stammering half sentences, all while shaking her head. Sylvia laughed and put a comforting hand on her friend's shoulder. Hey, I get it. It's fine. Sorry for misunderstanding and embarrassing you like that. She should have realized that someone as sheltered as Vanessa wouldn't have realized that just making out was probably the tamest thing that could have come out of prom night. Oof, that feels hard to read. In fairness, she probably should have warned her, but she also forgot that Vanessa likely would have needed warning. But then, wasn't that what her parents were for? It's fine, Vanessa said, quickly returning to her regular skin tone. So, are you two a thing now? Sylvia asked, taking her hand off of Vanessa's shoulder and adjusting her backpack. The two girls began to make their way down the main corridor of the school. A thing? Vanessa looked over at her. Yeah, Sylvia paused. I guess you wouldn't be boyfriend and girlfriend, considering. Unless your parents let up on that, too. Vanessa shook her head in response to that. Got it. Okay. Then maybe not boyfriend and girlfriend in the traditional sense, but are you two going to start sitting together at lunch and make out behind the locker rooms or something? Vanessa looked over at her friend, her eyes wide like a deer in the headlights. Sylvia blinked. Don't tell me you guys didn't talk about plans for after prom. Vanessa shook her head. Oh boy. Oh boy, what? Sylvia sighed. Even if it was not a date for you two, you guys still made out. He probably thinks you want to do stuff with him. Maybe not that type of stuff, she emphasized her words with a slight grin, but still stuff. Like hanging out and making out. But I told him no dating, Vanessa stammered. Sylvia shrugged. You said that, but then you made out. It's possible that was just a one-time thing, but you had better be prepared for what might happen today when he sees you. Like what? Well, what if he wants to take you out? Sylvia's voice grew serious for a moment. Are you prepared to tell him about your situation? Vanessa shook her head. People don't need to know. I don't need them to look at me any differently than they already do. She frowned. I wouldn't mind a boyfriend, though. Sylvia nodded her understanding. Maybe you could talk to your parents about it, but you'll probably still need to let him know if they gave their blessing. Vanessa fell silent. We'll actually revamp that, because I feel like it's an important thing to say, but not the right spot for it. Vanessa fell silent and looked down at her feet as she walked down the corridor of Sylvia. Or, she finally spoke up, I can be an ice queen and tell him that night was just a fling and I don't want to have any sort of relationship. Oh, heads up to Twitch viewers, there's an ad starting in about 2 or 3 minutes. Not sure how that's going to affect the end of stream ads, but this one's just going to be a 1 minute long ad, so just a heads up for y'all. Or, she finally spoke up, I can be an ice queen and tell him that that night was just a fling and that I don't want any sort of relationship. I'm gonna mark you for revamp. Sylvia blinked. That was the complete opposite of what she had just said about wanting a boyfriend. You do realize you're telling yourself that too, right? You just said you wanted a boyfriend. I kinda don't like that at all. Vanessa shrugged. If I tell him that, and I tell myself that, eventually it must be true. I mean, I'm sure there are rumors circulating about me not having any boyfriends by now anyway. Sylvia blinked and considered that for a moment. It was actually more plausible that there was another reason people might think Vanessa wasn't dating anyone, but she was not about to voice that idea. It would not be of benefit to anyone anyway. I don't like that line. The only result she could see from that would be another end for their friendship, and she did not want to go through that again. That too. Okay. There are probably rumors of various types, she conceded. Or, she added, there might not be any at all. She knew the last line was a lie. Everyone had rumors going on about them. Or everyone had rumors going about them, regardless of whether they were true or not. I know what I meant for this, but it sounds like it's just about Vanessa and Sylvia. But it's actually more for everybody. If you were a human, you had a rumor about you. The thing to be concerned about with those, typically, was how fast they got out, and who heard those rumors. Most of the time they fell on ears that could care less, or were only heard by people who shared similar thoughts, but would take no action. The dangerous ones were ones where people heard things and decided to take matters into their own hands. Sylvia shook her head and decided not to let those thoughts linger anymore. I'll actually highlight the whole thing. Well, Vanessa said, it's whatever. There's about a month left of school anyway. Yeah, that sounds about right. So whatever they think, it doesn't matter. Never did, never will. Sylvia nodded. Vanessa was absolutely right. Who cares what people thought about her, or even the two of them being as good friends as they were? They won't be around in the next 3 months, 3 years, or even 3 decades. Hey, Vanessa. A timid male voice called out from their left as they passed a hallway. The girls paused and looked over at the voice. It was none other than Thomas, Vanessa's date, or sort of date, from prom night. Sylvia glanced at her friend and asked, You good? Vanessa gave her a quick smile in return and nodded. I think I should be good. I'll catch you later. Later, Sylvia nodded and walked off toward her locker so she could prepare for the day. Behind her, she could hear Vanessa greet Thomas. She heard the nervousness in her friend's voice. Alright. And with that, we shall go ahead and wrap it up. So let's prepare the Yeah, it's the same day, so pop you down. Sylvia, April 15th. Question mark, question mark, question mark, class. I forget what class is, like just government or something, so we'll discover that together. Alright, looks like Twitch is getting an ad currently, so once that's done, I will go ahead and wrap it up. Alright, let's jump back up to here. So we are currently on page 105 out of 172. Remember, the pages do jump because of the reformatting that we're doing. But we are more than halfway through now, so that's good. But also remember that we do have, like, more, basically reconstruction surgery going on with the story. We got some chapters that we're moving earlier in the timeline. We also have a few chapters that I'm going to try to add in, see if I like them. If I don't like them, then I'll probably take them out. And if I do that, then I'm going to have to revise some of the chapters later on in the story. So it's just going to be one of those things, you know? But I am not streaming today or tomorrow. I'm going to be so busy tomorrow I won't be streaming tomorrow or Monday. I'm so busy those days. I'm already tired. Tuesday, I will probably be streaming, but I might end... Oh no, I normally end Tuesdays at 4, so that won't change at all. The kiddo is coming down from college for Christmas break, so I will... if I'm streaming when he comes home, this stream will end, but I don't know exactly when he's coming home. Just, I guess, going to be a household surprise. But I'm just letting you guys know in advance because of all that too. But yeah, we are doing good. Just a reminder, right now these edits are markup edits, and once this chapter is done going through that, then I'm going to go through and I'm going to like make the physical edits, not including the chapter additions or revamps, or rather not including the segments that I feel like need to be added every so often. That's more going to be an offline thing. Hey Bentley, I'm just wrapping up the stream. Welcome back. Sorry. Milo, yeah. Yeah, I'm just wrapping up the stream. Just going over the fact, you know, when I do my edits, currently markup, and then we're going to go through and do the manual edits later. Adding of the extra chapters and stuff will be done offline prior to publishing, and testing those out. But yeah, I'm wrapping up. I will not be streaming tomorrow or Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, the kiddo's coming home from college at some point, so if he comes home while I'm streaming, I'll probably end the stream early. And yeah, that is it. I don't really have anything else to ramble on about. I will be uploading a gacha game video tomorrow, a gacha pool. Looks like another Eden is next in the list, although I might do Infinity Nikki just to show that off a little bit. Plus I have some limited time tickets, or crystals as they call them in the game, so I might do that instead. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you all in Tuesdays. Yeah, sorry, had to go through my calendar again. I'll see you guys all again on Tuesday stream. Bye!